Okay, we're into the last quarter of a moon cycle that we call Okonokis to Tsitsitspi, which means this is when the Saskatoon berries ripen. I think I mentioned that on a previous video, but I want to introduce y'all to another of my favorite places. This is a stretch of the Old Man River Coulee that I call Pitsiksinak-Awahko. And the reason I call it that is because there's a high concentration, a high population of prairie rattlesnakes out here. In fact, any rattlesnake that's found in and around the city of Lethbridge, in the residential areas or parks, is a lot of them are relocated here. And there's a small voluntary force of 3 guys that do this, and I'm one of those guys that I'd rather go and catch a rattlesnake and bring it out here where it can live in peace than have it in the neighborhoods where people are afraid of them and people are prone to killing them. So yeah, so that's the meaning behind the name. In the past, this place was called Akeinisco, and there's different translations for that. Some people say it means there's many berries here. Other people relate it to the old whiskey trade Fort Whoop-Up. And so the translation becomes many people died here. I-ni is death. Mi-ni is berries. So Akeinisco means either many berries or many deaths. In any case, this is the coulee where I spend most of my winter in terms of walking around and learning about plants and animals. And so I'm going to do a little bit of that today. What I'm really out here for are a couple of things. One, I want to do some training out here. I want to go find maybe a sandy patch somewhere along the river and do some CLF practice. Also, one of the things I'm down here for is to get hawthorn berries and hawthorn leaves. And I'll tell you more about hawthorn when I get down toward them. Again, today I'm carrying about a 60-pound ruck, and I got heavy boots with 5-pound ankle weights, which also substitute as rice bags, and also substitute as kind of snake gaiters to add that little bit of protection from getting bit by rattlesnakes, which is also what the stick is about. This is just a nice piece of choke cherry that I cut earlier in the summer, and when I get into tall grass I sweep it ahead of me so that I'll warn the snakes. Chances are if you're going to get bit by a rattlesnake, it's because you're going to step right on it. So as long as you're not doing that, you're pretty safe. But you know, another reason why I cut this stick is because I want to learn to use jo, bow, cudgel, you know, long stick in martial arts practice. I did a little bit of that when I was in Aikido, but for the most part I don't really know anything about, not so familiar with the long stick. And the long stick is a good improvised weapon that you can find in many situations. So what I'm hoping to do this winter is to study it both by feel, getting the feel of it myself, and by looking into different forms and different techniques that use jo or cudgel or cane or bow, and ultimately developing my own set of forms or routines with it. Improvised weapons is something I'm very interested in terms of martial arts practice. One of the reasons being that I think they're more practical. But another reason being is I live in Canada, and in Canada most martial arts weapons that are obviously their only purpose is for martial arts practice, for use with fighting human beings or hurting human beings, well, that's illegal in Canada. So things like nunchucks, throwing stars, shuriken, switchblades, butterfly knives, lots of different types of knives and swords that wouldn't have any practical function other than martial arts. Lots of different chain, 3-sectional staffs and chains and things like these that are, you know, they've just been kind of, originally they may have started off as stuff you'd have around a farm in Asia, but, you know, they've become highly adopted into martial arts and stylized for that specific purpose. And so in Canada, it's illegal. It's a criminal offense to have any weapon that the only purpose for that weapon is to train to hurt human beings. So you got to have a little bit of a different approach here. Of course, you know, we can have rifles and things like that because they're used for hunting. We could have gardening equipment. We can have, you know, chains. We can have sticks and things that, you know, you can have things that have practical purposes other than to be used as weapons against people. That's not illegal, but it is illegal to have all of those other things. So for me, you know, even in terms of my FMK training, I know weapons doesn't come for quite a while, and I'm really new, but when it comes to that, I'm going to have to substitute out some other things. But yeah, so I'm interested in the improvised stuff, you know, in the same manner that I'm interested in training outdoors, in the same manner that I'm interested in learning from animals and using the, you know, natural stuff that's around you all the time in training. You know, that's, to me, that's the kind of art that I'm interested in. So yeah, so I'm carrying this with me today, and I may play around with the feel of it a bit. But for the most part, you know, I'm here to do a little bit of training and here to get a look around at what's new in this coulee, and definitely collect some hawthorn berries and hawthorn leaves. And who knows what we'll run into. So let's go check it out. So there's a couple of important plants up here on this ridge. There's actually a lot of important plants up on this ridge, but there's a whole cycle of harvest up here. And right now, two of the plants that are ready to go are this plant here, this white flower. This is prairie onion. It's a wild onion, and it's ready to harvest. The other one is this plant right in front of me, this green plant. This is wild tarragon. If you ever have, you know, in your spice cupboard, if you have tarragon, well, this is wild tarragon. So both of these I'll harvest a little bit while I'm here. The onions are pretty easy. They're usually, the bulbs are quite shallow, so even a little crowbar does the trick. I sometimes carry this smaller one. This one I, you know, usually have in my backpack all the time. If I know I'm going to do some serious root digging, I carry a much larger crowbar. The crowbars are potentially another improvised martial arts weapon that I can work on, by the way. So just to show you these, the onions, see, they're that easy to dig out, and I'll come up close so you can see them. Hopefully the camera can focus on that, but you know, just with one little dig of the crowbar, I got 3 little onions. And what I've found, and onions is something that, although this is the prairie onion, so not everybody's going to have this in their area, but if you're living in the northern hemisphere, you've probably got some kind of wild onions in areas around your house. So you just gotta find those different onions. You gotta be careful not to confuse onion with death camas. So if you are gonna go pick onions, you should take a look at what death camas looks like, because if you're living in the west, there's lots of death camas. Here in Alberta, there's lots of death camas. But it really does look different than onion. It's hard to confuse it if you at least learn what it looks like. Anyway, what I've found with the wild onions, I've done different things with them. Of course, you can eat them just as is. You take the husk off, just like a regular onion husk for a commercial onion. And you got a little bulb there, and you can eat that little bulb, just as is. And it's a good onion. It's not any MMA onion. So, but say you want to pick a bunch of these onions and you want to have them for winter. What I've found is that you just leave them just like this. Okay? Don't cut the stalk off of the onion. Don't take the husk off. Don't wash them. You just take them straight from the ground, just like this. Tie them in a bundle, hang them up, let them dry, and the bulb will stay pretty good. I've even got onions that I picked last summer that the bulbs are still good this summer. So they last a long time, and they're one that's real easy to harvest. The other one I was telling you about, this plant, this is the wild tarragon, and it's got in, some of it's flowering right now, some of it's seeding right now. I still got a little bit that this can be picked, but of course the greens are ready right now, just not the seeds. But yeah, this is a spice, right? So if you want to use tarragon in your cooking, you live in a place where there's wild tarragon, well, it's real easy to go pick all this. You don't gotta pay $5 for a little, $10 for a little bottle of it, right? And go pick it wild. So that's a couple of the plants up here. Might run into, that's a nice spice. Might run into some cactus berries, although it's a little bit early for them. So, but we're not too far from coming across the hawthorn patch, so I'm looking forward to that. Alright, so I've made it down to the hawthorn brush, and there's good and bad news down here, and it's the same news. The good aspect is that I'm not at all late for the hawthorn berries. The bad aspect is the hawthorn berries are not quite ready to harvest yet. They're still fairly green. They're turning red, and I'll show you, but they're still fairly green, and I want them nice and red. But at the same time, I can go ahead and pick the leaves, because with the hawthorn, the leaves and the berry have the same medicinal quality, and that's what I'm really interested in. I mean, I'm going to use the berry as a food, but it has a lot of seeds in it. It's a hawthorn's really closely related to the rose. In fact, it's in the same family of plants as the rose, but it grows as kind of a big woody bush. So rose hips have lots of seeds in them, and hawthorn berries are the same way. They're mostly seed and just a little bit of rind of good fruit stuff on the outside. I've tried to incorporate them starting last year into my diet as a regular part, and the reason for that is the medicinal quality. And since the leaves have the same medicinal quality, I can gather a lot of those leaves and use them for teas and such. But anyway, what I'm interested in with the hawthorn is that, well, for one thing, I've been introducing you guys to lots of plants from Alberta, from my area, that you may not have, you probably don't have in your area. Hawthorn is different. There's hawthorn species that grow all around the northern hemisphere of the world. So, you know, from what I've seen, most people that are involved in FMK and ZMA so far are living in the northern hemisphere. So you've probably got access to hawthorn berries and hawthorn leaves where you live. And how you use the hawthorn is in small doses over a long time. It's really good for the heart and for other things. It has a lot of what they call antioxidants. You know, I'm not a real medical guy or anything, but what I understand is the antioxidants, they kill free radicals in your body, and so free radicals are naturally produced in your body, and these are the kind of things that attack and kill cells. So antioxidants can help stave off some of the kind of symptoms of old age and fight against things like cancer and that kind of thing. But more what I'm interested in with the hawthorn is the way that it acts on the heart and the blood vessels. From what I understand, it's really good for your circulatory system. What it does is it increases the size of the blood vessels, and so more blood can move more easily through your body, and it also strengthens the tissue of the blood vessels, so you're less likely to get like an aneurysm or anything like that. People with heart diseases, if they're going any kind of herbal route, they'll use a lot of hawthorn. But it's something that, you know, if you're using it in low quantities all year round, you can develop it up in your body so that it's really helping your heart and circulatory system, and that's what I want to gather it for. So today I'm going to gather some of the leaves here, but there's, you know, anytime out here on the prairie, you know, Alberta has lots of different kind of environments, and the area I live is the prairie, but I live really close to the mountains, so I'll definitely be showing you guys Rocky Mountains as well, maybe even as soon as tomorrow, as a matter of fact. But out here on the prairie, you know, anytime you get a little bit of moisture or area where a little bit of moisture collects, it's kind of like an oasis of plants and animals. And so where this hawthorn is a little draw leading down from the Coulee slope. So, you know, when the snow melts off after winter, this is one of the draws that the snow melt will come down, go into the river. And so there's some moisture in here, you know, all the ground slopes down to here, and as a result there's all kind of plants here that you don't find out in the drier areas of the prairie. So there's actually a lot here to look at right now, and I'm going to show you some of those plants. I just pick up the camera. Alright, so we'll start by looking at the hawthorn itself. This is the hawthorn, and I think I can zoom in a little bit on the berries. You can see that they're pinkening up, but they'll get a bright red when they're ready. So we're not ready yet. But again, I'm going to collect the leaves, use those to make a tea, that I can get those antioxidants into my body, and also start working on you know, increasing my blood flow in my body. But there's other things here. Of course, there's a lot of you have probably recognized these. They're pretty common in North America, these bull thistles. And thistle is another one it's edible. Most people will eat the root if they're going to eat this. But the thing about thistles is there's a bacteria that grows on the root. So if you're going to eat the root, you have to cook it and get rid of that bacteria, because that bacteria makes you really kind of violently sick. And I've learned that the hard way, because first time I tried eating thistle, I got some of that bacteria in me, and it really did a number. It was like having a really bad 48-hour flu. I also got here, there's two members of the mint family here in this brush. This one right here, which is growing right here. This is actually catnip. So I'm not really a cat person, and it's not a mint that tastes good. I don't collect this. But if I had cats and I wanted catnip, I can get it for free because I know my plants. Another one, the other member of the mint family that's here is the one I was showing you before. I think in my first video out in the coulees, I showed you this plant that was in brilliant purple flower, and I called it Manikapi, wild bergamot. Well, this down here, you can see the flower has played out, and that's what I'm waiting for. That's what I've been waiting for. So now I'm gonna pick some of this. And this is that good menthol used for colds and such. I also got another idea that I'm gonna use it for. I'll show you guys that what I'm thinking of when I get home. If I can find some yarrow, I'm gonna mix that in as well to what I'm thinking of using some of this for. I've also got here, you can see right here, this is a sage. This is actually a prairie sage wart, they call it, but in Blackfoot called Ninakaksimi. It's the man sage. And sage, there's of course lots of different uses for sage, both as a spice and medicinally. And if I climb back into this hawthorn, and you gotta be careful because hawthorn does have these really big thorns, quite sharp, and they can do a number on you. But getting right in the shade, you run into some other stuff. Here's some more Manikapi right there. But the one I wanted to show you is this big leaf over here. This is this big leaf is burdock, and burdock is one that I need my big crowbar to go after. But I still got lots of time from now until the ground gets icy to pick this stuff. And what you do with burdock is not indigenous to North America. It's actually a Southeast Asian, Eurasian introduction, and there's lots of different kinds of burdock. Oh, we've got a little yellow warbler checking us out. But anyway, there's lots of different kinds of burdock, but you can find it growing in a lot of places in North America, and it was introduced actually as a food root. So you know, even now, if you go into lots of different Asian markets, Asian grocery markets, you can buy burdock root, or if you know your plants, you can come pick it. Burdock root is a huge root. It's a really long root, and it's very good vegetable root in just straight as it is. You can eat it. It tastes very good. You can slice it up, and most people use it in stir fry and things like that. Probably if you've eaten, you know, a lot of different Asian restaurants, you probably had burdock and may not even know it. But the plant has a 2-year cycle, so you want to find ones either at the beginning of summer or at the end of summer. They look like this, that don't have any stalk coming up out of it with the burrs and the flowers and that kind of thing. You want to find it where it's just basal leaves like this, because that means this is a first year plant. Once it sends up a stalk, the root gets woody and it's, you know, it's not really good to eat. But while it's like this, you can dig up the root, and I'll definitely do that in a subsequent video when I've got my big crowbar. It is a chore to dig up a burdock root, and you need the heavy equipment. But yeah, it's a really good food plant. So that's a few things that are right here worth picking. I'm gonna grab the Monikapi, and I'm gonna grab some of the hawthorn leaves. Okay, so I'm down here at the Old Man River now, and thought before I start looking for a place to do some CLF training, I'll show you one last plant. Back behind me here, all this greenery, this is wild licorice, and I know I described the wild licorice before, up somewheres about on the Coulee rim, in one of my earlier videos. But now that we're out here on kind of the sandier soil by the river, I'm going to show you what wild licorice root really looks like. This is one of the easier places to dig it because it's sandy. I always get it from either from here where it's sandy, or from a cut bank where it's just coming right out of the bank as the ground thaws at the end of winter. But anyway, I'll dig one up, try to find a good one. Alright, got a couple of good pieces of root here. Wasn't too easy to dig them out. We were pretty much going straight down, and gonna wash them off in the river. Alright, so basically this is how they look. As they dry, they'll turn kind of yellowish. They got yellow bark anyway, but the inside will yellow a bit. And it's very sweet, sugary kind of a root. The old time buffalo runners, the young men that used to have to chase the bison during hunting, we eat this for energy. They chew on some of this. Today they sell this stuff at candy stores in Alberta. You buy a stick about that big, costs you, you know, 50 cents or something like that, 75 cents. Kids will chew on it like it's sugar cane or something like that. But it grows in abundance out here, and most people, they just don't know how to identify it. They don't know that they're buying something at the store that they could walk out and pick in their backyard. Or some people are just, you know, kind of lazy about that stuff. I mean, pretty much everywhere that I've lived in my life, there's been an abundance of plant food. You know, this is probably, here in Alberta, it's probably the least amount of plant food that I've ever had available, because we're in the desertish area. But, you know, living along the west coast, there's such a huge abundance of fruit and such. I went to school on the east coast. It's a huge abundance of plant food out there. But people don't generally make use of it. A lot of times they'll even go to the store, you know, like a guy living in Oregon, Washington will go to the store and pay, you know, $5 for some blackberries, and he might even have blackberries in his backyard, and that's how ridiculous it is. Anyway, I'm not like that, so I try to get out here and get the stuff that's available when it's available. So licorice root is all year round, but in the winter when the ground is ice, it's pretty hard to collect it then. So pretty much any time after the thaw, licorice root's available.